This presentation is not a substitute for medical consultation. A physician should always be consulted for any health problem or medical condition. And all logos, texts, and images used in this presentation are the property of their respective copyright owners and are used here for educational purposes only. And if you would like to use any portion of this presentation for non-personal educational use, please contact the meeting host or presenter for express permission. And then today's agenda, we will be going over the Project Echo series overview. We will do introductions. We will have the presentation, the case study, and then we will do the question and answer forum. And just a little bit about Project Echo. The Rutgers Cancer Institute became a Project Echo hub in 2021. And Project Echo is a movement to demonopolize knowledge and amplify local capacity to provide best practice care for underserved people all over the world. The Echo model is committed to addressing the needs of the most vulnerable populations by equipping communities with the right knowledge at the right place at the right time. And this is done by using technology to leverage scarce resources, sharing best practices to reduce disparities, applying case-based learning to master complexity, and evaluating and monitoring outcomes. And if you would like any more information on Project Echo, you can visit their website, which is down there on the bottom right of the screen. Now I will pass it over to the presenters for today. Cecilia will be going first, and she will be doing our didactic presentation. I will turn it over to you, Cecilia.
Thank you, Gabby, and good morning, everybody. Give me one moment while I get my screen set up. I hope everybody's doing well today and got a chance to enjoy the beautiful weather yesterday. I know I did. Okay. And how does that look?
Great. We can see your
Okay.
slide.
All right, perfect. So welcome everybody to the Gut Microbiome and Cancer. My name is Cecilia, and I am a community cancer control specialist with the Rutgers Cancer Institute. I've been with the Rutgers Cancer Institute for almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in July. And so I'm very excited to be here today presenting on the gut microbiome. We will talk about what it is, the role that it plays in cancer risk and development, and how to take care of it. I know we went through this disclaimer already, but just for anybody who just logged in, the information in this presentation is not a substitute for a medical consult. A physician should always be consulted for any health problem or medical condition. All logos, text, and images used in this presentation are the property of their respective copyright owners and are used for educational purposes only. If you would like to use any portion of the presentation for non-personal educational use, please contact the meeting host or presenter for express permission. We'll start by taking a pre-survey. So all of these questions will be discussed throughout the presentation, and the answers will be revealed at the end during the post-survey. So we will just go ahead and select true or false on your screen. The first question is, the largest collection of bacteria in our body is found in the colon. True or false? Number 2, the gut microbiota play a role in estrogen levels. True or false? And number 3, oral health can affect your gut microbiota health. True or false? Give everybody a moment to fill this out.
Cecilia, you can move on.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. So let's begin by answering the question, what is the gut microbiome? You have probably heard of terms such as the gut microbiome or gut health, and what these terms are usually referring to are the gut microbiota. The gut microbiota is the collection of trillions of bacteria, fungi, and viruses that live in and on the human body. The gut microbiome refers to the genes of these trillions of microorganisms, as well as their metabolites and their environmental conditions. So these terms are usually used interchangeably to refer to bacteria that reside in the digestive system, but they are a little bit different. You can almost think of the gut microbiome as a house and the microbiota as its inhabitants. But these microorganisms also reside everywhere. They reside on the skin, in the nose, and in the vaginal canal. But the largest community of the microbiota is found in the colon, in the digestive tract. And so you may be wondering, why are these gut microbiota important? So gut microbiota research is relatively new and rapidly evolving. We're learning more and more almost every day. So more research is needed to understand exactly how the gut microbiome impacts our health. However, studies show that they play several important roles, such as absorbing nutrients from our food, impacting inflammation, supporting metabolism, modulating the immune system, protecting against pathogenic infections, and influencing the efficacy of cancer treatment. However, when our gut microbiome is disrupted, it becomes imbalanced, and this is known as gut dysbiosis. This sometimes is referred to as simply poor gut health. It may consist of a loss of bacterial diversity, too little beneficial bacteria, or too many harmful bacteria. And dysbiosis may lead to the progression of some diseases, such as type 2 diabetes, inflammatory bowel disease, and even colon cancer. Symptoms of gut dysbiosis are usually chronic and may include digestive issues, but also other symptoms such as joint pain, skin inflammation, and fatigue. There is currently no gold standard treatment for gut dysbiosis, which is why knowing what factors may negatively affect our gut health and what we can do to protect our gut health is important. And next, we will take a look at the role that the gut microbiome and dysbiosis may play in some cancers. Scientists are still researching exactly how the gut microbiome may impact cancer risk and development. However, there is known to be a strong link between dysbiosis and colorectal cancer. And this makes sense because the majority of the gut microbiota are located in the colon. So there are a few ways that the gut microbiota may influence colorectal cancer risk. The beneficial bacteria in our gut microbiome produce metabolites called short-chain fatty acids. And this is something that we will be mentioning a lot today because these short-chain fatty acids have potent anti-cancer effects. And when in dysbiosis, these protective bacteria are lost and the gut loses the anti-cancer protection from the short-chain fatty acids. The gut then becomes more susceptible to pathogenic bacteria that can cause cancer. The first known study linking colorectal cancer to gut dysbiosis was done in 1971. The study found that patients with colorectal cancer had a larger amount of Bacteroides fragilis, which was known to induce spontaneous colonic tumorigenesis in mice, or in other words, begin the process of colorectal cancer development. And in a more recent study, colorectal cancer survivors were found to have a smaller number of short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria compared to people who did not have colorectal cancer. Chronic inflammation in the gut, such as caused by inflammatory bowel disease, is directly linked to a higher risk of colorectal cancer as well. And it is believed that gut dysbiosis and inflammation are reciprocal, meaning that inflammation can cause dysbiosis and dysbiosis can cause inflammation. Emerging research also suggests that gut health can influence breast cancer risk. A small 2018 study found that postmenopausal breast cancer patients had a larger number of certain bacteria in their gut microbiome, including E. coli, compared to people who did not have breast cancer. The same study found that postmenopausal breast cancer patients had a diminished amount of short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria. Another way that gut health might affect breast cancer risk is through modulating estrogen levels. So estrogen plays an important part in our health. When estrogen levels are balanced, they support the health of our reproductive organs, bones, heart, and brain. When estrogen is too low, it can cause issues such as poor sleep and worsen PMS. When estrogen is too high, it can cause irregular periods, weight gain, and digestive symptoms. And if estrogen levels remain too high for a prolonged period of time, it can contribute to the risk of reproductive cancers such as breast cancer. And so the term estrobolome refers to the genes of the bacteria in the gut that are able to metabolize estrogen and therefore have the potential to elevate circulating estrogen concentrations. You can almost think of it as a microbiome within a microbiome. So this is important because about 70% of breast cancers are known to be estrogen receptor positive, meaning the cancer needs estrogen to develop. A healthy gut microbiome and estrobolome is responsible for balanced level of estrogen in the body because the estrobolome produces a bacterial species that then produces an enzyme called beta-glucuronidase, which breaks down estrogen into its active forms. The enzymes will then excrete excess estrogen, usually in the form of a bowel movement, or they'll reabsorb estrogen back into the body, which may contribute to estrogen levels that are too high. So when dysbiosis is present, the enzymes will usually reabsorb more estrogen than is needed and increase the risk of ER receptor positive breast cancer. Next, we will talk about the factors that may contribute to poor gut health. The first being antibiotics. Antibiotics can be necessary and life-saving, but unfortunately, the CDC estimates that about 30% of antibiotic prescriptions are prescribed unnecessarily. This overuse of antibiotics can have negative effects, such as causing dysbiosis, because antibiotics do not only kill pathogenic bacteria, but beneficial bacteria as well. Antibiotic use in the early years of a child's life may be linked to an increased risk for inflammatory bowel disease, asthma, and allergies. And in adults, a 2015 study found that penicillin usage was associated with a higher risk of esophageal, gastric, and pancreatic cancers. The risk increased with each course of penicillin. So those who used penicillin more than 5 times in their lives were 1.4 times more likely to develop gastric cancers. We'll also talk about C-section and lower breastfeeding rates. So birthing methods and the mother's microbiome dictates the vast majority of their baby's microbiome. About 74% of the baby's microbiome is cultivated in the vaginal canal. Compare this to C-section babies, where only about 13% of their microbiomes were attained from their mother. Additionally, the microbiomes of vaginally birthed babies were similar to their mother's vaginal microbiome, while C-section babies had gut microbiomes more similar to their mother's skin microbiome, which is very interesting. More research is needed, but there are likely links between C-section births and children with food allergies, asthma, obesity, and even child-onset type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes in adulthood. It's important to note that C-section births by themselves are likely not the sole cause, because the microbiomes of babies born by C-section, but who were then breastfed, had similar gut microbiomes to vaginally birthed babies. So this means that breast milk is likely able to correct dysbiosis and establish a diverse gut microbiome in babies. It's more likely that a combination of several different factors like C-sections, formula feeding, and antibiotic use would contribute to dysbiosis in children. Next, we'll talk about poor diet. So diets low in fruits, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains cause dysbiosis by depriving the gut bacteria of fiber. Dietary fiber is actually not broken down by our bodies. It moves through the gastrointestinal tract undigested until it reaches the large intestine, where it is then fermented by the bacteria in the gut microbiome. These bacteria rely solely on fiber, and they use it to produce short-chain fatty acids that have potent anti-cancer effects. So when there is a lack of fiber, these bacteria have nothing to feed on and they are lost. Fiber acts as this nourishment for the gut microbiome, and it's truly very important. High fat and high red meat intake have been found to contribute to dysbiosis due to increased levels of inflammation. A 2011 study found that after just 4 weeks of a high protein, low fiber diet, there was a significant decrease in short chain fatty acids. Another contributor to poor gut health can actually be poor oral health. More and more research is beginning to show just how important our oral health is. So the oral cavity is the second largest microbiome in the body after the gut, and both are interrelated. This is usually referred to as the oral gut microbiome axis. Periodontitis, which is actually a disease of oral dysbiosis, may aggravate the development of several diseases such as irritable bowel disease, colorectal cancer, chronic liver disease, liver cancer, and pancreatic cancer. This is thought to be due to the translocation of periodontitis causing bacteria to the gut microbiome. As we see in this image, the digestive system begins in the mouth and continues through the esophagus, stomach, small intestine, and large intestine, which is where the gut microbiome is, and the anus. The connection between the oral and gut microbiomes means that there is a unique relationship between the two. Studies have found that the gut microbiomes of both inflammatory bowel disease patients and colon cancer patients had high numbers of bacteria that typically belong to the oral microbiome. Healthy guts should have a mucosal barrier that would prevent this from happening, that would prevent this translocation from happening. However, dysbiosis, especially when found in patients with irritable bowel disease and colon cancer, can cause increased gut permeability, which is also known as leaky gut, that may allow this translocation to happen. Increased gut permeability, or leaky gut as it's commonly referred to, means that the lining of the intestinal walls have weakened, and this allows toxins and bacteria to enter the bloodstream. You can take care of your oral health by flossing daily, brushing twice a day, and seeing your hygienist regularly. Make sure to also brush your tongue, or you can use a tongue scraper to remove that plaque and bacteria buildup from your tongue as well. Another cause of poor gut health is excessive alcohol use. While more research is needed to understand exactly how alcohol affects the gut microbiome, studies have found that heavy drinking is associated with dysbiosis and increased gut permeability. A 2023 study suggests that in binge drinkers, the gut microbiome changes caused by alcohol can actually lead to increased alcohol cravings, which is just fascinating. And we see that it's almost a cycle, right? Heavy alcohol use is also a known risk factor for several types of cancer, including oral, colorectal, liver, and breast cancers. The recommended limit is no more than 1 drink per day for women and 2 drinks per day for men. And how much is 1 drink, you may be wondering? It's 12 ounces of beer, a 1.5 ounce shot of liquor, 5 ounces of wine, or 8 to 9 ounces of malt liquor. And it is not recommended to save up these 1 or 2 drinks per day for the weekend, because that is binge drinking, and we see that that has a lot of negative effects. Next, we will touch on poor circadian rhythm. So this really needs a lot more research, but I think it's very interesting. And research does suggest that the bacteria in our gut microbiomes have their own circadian rhythms that are closely linked to our own. And the relationship is thought to be reciprocal. Circadian dysrhythmia can cause dysbiosis, and dysbiosis can cause circadian dysrhythmia. So what is the circadian rhythm? Circadian rhythm is the 24-hour cycle that your body's processes go through. You can think of it as your body's own inner clock. It controls functions such as your sleep-wake cycle, your digestion, and your hormones. A healthy circadian rhythm promotes stable energy levels, keeps inflammation under control, and supports overall well-being. A disrupted circadian rhythm, whether it's due to jet lag, shift work, sleep apnea, or inconsistent eating patterns, is linked to higher risks of obesity, diabetes, and even cancer. One of the most influential factors in disrupting circadian rhythm in the gut microbiome is actually meal timing. So late night meals were found to negatively alter the gut microbiome. An overnight fast of about 12 to 14 hours has been found to be extremely beneficial and improve gut microbiome health and circadian rhythm. So this is as simple as finishing your last meal by 7 p.m. and eating breakfast the next day after 7 a.m. This overnight fast alone has been shown to have great effects for your overall health due to the positive effects on the gut microbiota. And so in general, no other fasting is really needed, like intermittent fasting, unless recommended by a doctor or for religious reasons, of course. So in addition to this overnight fast, you can take care of your circadian rhythm by avoiding bright light at night and getting sunlight exposure within an hour of waking up. And the sunlight should be unfiltered, meaning not through a window or sunglasses. Ideally, you would be outside and getting the sunlight on your skin, but of course, don't look directly at the sun. Also, try to go to sleep and wake up around the same time every day. And next, we will move on to what we can do to nourish our gut microbiome health. Nourishing our gut microbiome health means supporting its diversity. A diverse gut microbiome is directly linked to reduced risk for chronic disease and increased well-being. You can almost think of it as recruiting more players, each with different strengths, to play on your team. We can support diverse microbiota in a few different ways, and those are fiber, fermented foods, diversity of plant foods, resistant starches, exercises, and time in nature. We've talked a bit about fiber already today, but that's because it is truly vital for good gut health. Not only is it one of the most important factors for our gut, but it's also one of the easiest to control. For example, we can't always avoid taking antibiotics, right? But we can almost always control our fiber intake. Adequate fiber intake is essential for gut microbiome health because, again, the gut bacteria ferment the fiber that we eat and create short-chain fatty acids that have direct effects on the health of our cells and cancer development. Without fiber, there are no short-chain fatty acids to help protect against cancer cell growth. Short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria are also necessary for metabolizing certain vitamins, such as B vitamins and minerals such as calcium, magnesium, and iron. The beneficial effects of consuming fiber is observed in the gut microbiome in as quickly as 24 hours, which is just amazing. The fiber intake recommendations are about 25 to 30 grams per day, and it's best to focus on getting fiber from whole foods rather than supplements. Great sources of fiber includes beans, lentils, oatmeal, berries, and cruciferous veggies, but typically any food that comes from a plant source will have some fiber, and you can also opt for whole grain versions of bread and pasta. most people do not get enough fiber in the day. And if you suspect that you're not getting enough fiber, it's best to increase your fiber intake very slowly, because adding in too much fiber at once can cause abdominal distress. So just add in a couple of grams per day, see how that feels after a week. If that feels good, you can add in a few more grams. Another way to take care of your gut health is by eating fermented foods. Fermented foods such as sauerkraut, yogurt, vinegar, and kimchi contain probiotics that help to support microbiota diversity. A 2021 study found that participants who ate a serving or more of fermented foods every day for 10 weeks had more diverse gut microbiomes, and they also had less activation in 4 immune cells and a decrease in 19 inflammatory markers. So this implies that fermented foods are just as important as fiber-rich foods for maintaining gut health and overall health. When increasing fermented food intake, you do want to be careful. Some products, such as sauerkraut and kimchi, tend to have a lot of salt. So just make sure that you're always reading the nutrition facts label. It is recommended to limit your salt intake to less than 2,300 milligrams per day. You may have noticed the word probiotic here, so let's touch on that as well as a couple of other terms. A probiotic refers to the live bacterial strains in fermented foods and also in some supplements. So when you consume probiotics, you are adding more bacterial strains or more microbiota to your gut microbiome. However, these probiotics need prebiotics to thrive. And prebiotics are compounds found in plant fiber that are the food that the microbiota consume. So when the gut microbiome is happy and healthy from enough pre and probiotics, it then creates postbiotics, which are like the byproducts of the microbiome. And postbiotics include short chain fatty acids, as mentioned before, but also B vitamins, vitamin K, and some amino acids. So we can see everything is connected. So this one is really interesting, and it's a diversity of plant foods. The American Gut Project examined the stool microbiomes of over 10,000 participants and found that those who ate more than 30 different types of plant foods per week had a more diverse gut microbiome and higher numbers of short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria. So we know that the fruit and vegetable intake, daily intake recommendation is 5 a day, 3 cups of vegetables and 2 cups of fruit a day, right? But this research suggests that diversifying your 5 a day is just as important. So you want to aim to eat different fruits and vegetables at every day, at every meal, to support a diverse gut microbiome, and also to get a variety of different vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants. And I know that 30 different plants per week sounds intimidating, but even foods derived from plants such as olive oil, spices, tea, and even coffee count due to their phytochemical content. And a phytochemical is basically just a plant chemical. And these participants who ate more than 30 different types of plants per week also had a reduced number of antibiotic-resistant genes compared to participants who ate less than 10 different plant foods per week. So that's really interesting because we know already that antibiotic overuse is an issue, and that contributes to antibiotic resistance. So it's good to know what we can about reducing the risk for antibiotic resistance. And now this one is really fun, in my opinion. So resistant starches. Resistant starches are a type of starch that pass through the small colon undigested, and then they reach the large intestine where it is fermented by the microbiome. They have several beneficial effects on the microbiome. So rice, pasta, and resistant starches are found in foods such as whole grains and legumes, and then they are also formed when rice, pasta, and potatoes are cooked and then cooled. So rice, pasta, and potatoes go through a retrogradation process where the structure gelatinizes when cooked and then crystallizes when cooled. And this results in a resistant starch that has a reduced glycemic load, so it's better for people who have type 2 diabetes. And it also has a reduced calorie content. And it has increased gut microbiome benefits. It almost acts as its own special sort of fiber in the gut microbiome. The food can be reheated before consuming, and you still get the benefits. So this means that whenever you're having leftover rice, leftover pasta, potatoes, or a chili that has beans in it, etc., you're deriving even more benefit from it than when it was freshly made. It has less calories, lesser glycemic load, and it feeds your gut microbiota. So this is a great excuse for doing less cooking throughout the week, right? It's a great excuse to eat more leftovers. One study actually observed 2 groups of mice that were treated with the carcinogen meant to induce colon cancer. So one group was fed a standard mice diet, while the other was fed resistant starches from cooked and cooled rice, potatoes, and pasta. Tumors developed in the standard diet group, while none developed in the group fed with resistant starches. The resistant starches were found to cause apoptosis or cancer cell death, and that's just really fascinating. And next up, we will talk about exercise. So the relationship between exercise and the gut microbiome is very complex and it needs more research. But studies have found that regular exercise results in higher numbers of short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria. And even if we don't know exactly how exercise benefits the gut microbiome, we know that exercise is important for many other reasons. It can help maintain a healthy weight, reduce chronic inflammation, reduce your risk for chronic disease and some cancers, and improve your mental health. So the weekly exercise recommendations are 150 minutes of moderate intensity cardio exercise or 75 minutes of vigorous intensity cardio exercise. Well, a moderate intensity cardio would be, let's say you're going for a jog, but you can still keep up a conversation. You can still talk. That is considered moderate intensity. Vigorous intensity would be you're going for a run and you cannot keep up a conversation. You have to focus on your breathing. That's a good rule of thumb to go by. And these 150 or 75 minutes can be broken up throughout the week. Obviously, you don't have to get 150 minutes of jogging in one day. And on top of that, you do want to do at least 2 20 to 30 minute sessions of strength training to maintain your lean muscle mass. And this could be as simple as doing body weight exercises like push-ups at home, or finding something that's somewhat heavy in your home and doing a movement like bicep curls, or it can be going to the gym and doing traditional weight lifting. But maintaining lean muscle mass is extremely, extremely important. And you can get the benefits just by 2 20 to 30 minute sessions. So I think that's great. And lastly, we will talk a little bit about spending time in nature. So modern day lifestyles are largely urbanized and do not provide much opportunity for interaction with nature. Whereas in the past, people were hunter-gatherers, farmers, and livestock keepers. This shift is believed to have contributed to the loss of gut microbiome diversity and increase in chronic diseases. Spending time in nature is already known to have beneficial effects on mental health, and researchers are beginning to investigate the link between nature, or more specifically, exposure to soil and other environmental microbes on our gut microbiome health. A 2020 study found that participants who had a variety of different plants in and around their homes had a more diverse microbiome. So this is likely because you're interacting with the leaves or the soil when you're watering the plants or moving the plants or repotting, right? You're getting exposure to those microbes in the soil. Research has also proven that children who grew up on farms and were regularly exposed to soil and animal dander have exponentially lower rates of asthma and allergies than children who grew up in urban areas. And the protective benefits have been found to be even stronger when the pregnant mother was involved in the farm work as well, which is just amazing. And finally, we'll talk about the microbiome in cancer treatment. Evolving research has found that the gut microbiome may play a role in the efficacy of cancer treatment. Patients with dysbiosis have been found to have reduced response to cancer treatment, which implies the importance of a healthy gut for positive cancer treatment outcomes. More diverse gut microbiomes and specific bacterial strains have been identified in patients who have responded well to chemotherapies, radiation, and immunotherapies. The research on gut microbiome-based interventions to make cancer treatment more effective is promising, and scientists are hopeful that methods such as fecal transplants, diet and nutrition interventions, and probiotic supplementation may one day be able to make cancer treatments more successful. So I think that's something to really look forward to. I'd like to thank everybody for your time. I hope this was interesting and informative. We will go through our post survey in just a moment, and then you will also have the opportunity to fill out a feedback survey. Let me know what you think. I really appreciate all of your thoughts and comments. And we will have time for questions at the end of the echo. So true or false, the largest collection of bacteria in our body is found in the colon. Number 2, the gut microbiome plays a role in estrogen levels. True or false? And number 3, oral health can affect your gut microbiome health. True or false? So these are all true. It's the largest collection of bacteria is found in the colon. The gut microbiome does play a role in estrogen levels through that estrobolome, and oral health can affect your gut microbiome health. I'd like to thank everybody for responding to the pre and post surveys. And if you could take a moment, it doesn't have to be right now, but at some point today to fill out our feedback survey on this presentation, we would really appreciate it. So we'll post this link in the chat, and thank you. I will hand it over to Michelle.
Great. Thank you so much, Cecilia. That was an amazing presentation. So I'm just going to pop up my screen here for everyone to see, and hopefully you're able to see this.
Yes, looks good, Michelle.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Thank you so much. Well, welcome everyone. My name is Michelle Jansen. I serve as the program manager for the New Jersey Kids Study. And I also had the pleasure for just about 3 years, I had worked with the amazing team at Rutgers Cancer Institute before I transitioned over to the New Jersey Kids Study. So the New Jersey Kids Study is a brandy new state-supported study through state funding. Our two principal investigators are Dr. Martin Blazer as well as Dr. Emily Barrett. So Dr. Blazer has really dedicated most of his career to microbiome research, and Emily Barrett has really dedicated her career to maternal and child health research. And I also just like to make a shout out. I know we have a Crystal on in our Zoom room today, but we recently hired 2 new research assistants that are part of our team. So we have Harini Patabendi as well as Crystal Velez Rosa, who are helping with all things New Jersey Kids Study related. So when we look at the state of child health in New Jersey, it actually mirrors what we see on a national level. Here in New Jersey, we have one of the highest childhood asthma rates in the nation. Every 1 out of 8 children in New Jersey suffers from asthma. We also have the 3rd highest rate of new autism diagnoses among 8-year-old children. We have 1 out of every 35 New Jersey kids that are diagnosed with autism. And then we have an obesity crisis among our kids. We have 31% of our children that are either overweight or obese, and they're struggling with this at younger and younger ages, which is really, really concerning. And these are trends that we really haven't seen before in history, and we're seeing what the impact of this is now. So as I mentioned, as you can see here in this map, the red areas in the nation are actually the kind of the epicenter where we have the highest rates of childhood asthma. And then in New Jersey, Toms River right now has their school district has one of the highest rates of autism in the state. But if we kind of take a bigger, like a bird's eye view, we see that, just about 20% of our school districts are reporting that 5% or more of their student population is on the autism spectrum continuum. So when we think about all of this in relation to the microbiome, this is, one of the big questions that the New Jersey Kids Study is really geared to answer. We want to know, how are these microbial shifts that we're seeing over time really impacting child health? And if we go really before that to the moment of conception and pregnancy, because we know that we have microbiome development at all of these different time points. And if we think about the microbiome, it's pretty amazing because we have more bacterial cells in our body than we do of human cells. And there are no two people that have the same exact microbiome. Even in twin studies, they found that the microbiomes are very different. So each of us has our own unique microbiome signature. And I kind of think of it like a fingerprint, right? All of our fingerprints are unique, and the same holds true for our microbiome. But there are a few things that we do know, right? We know that generally, once the microbiome is established, there are changes that happen in the microbiome from infancy, until a few years of age and childhood. But really, once the microbiome is established, it tends to be pretty persistent, right? We don't have a lot of changes in it over time. And from a nutritional perspective, if we think of just like, we have this very symbiotic relationship with our microbiome because without the microbiome, we couldn't even digest our food. So the microbiome is really necessary for human life. But one of our big questions that's driving this study is, could changes in our microbiome be underlying what we're seeing for our chronic disease crisis among our kids, and even kind of expanding that right to adults? So if we think about, how microbes were transferred throughout human history before our more recent generations, right? We had this very simple mother to child transfer of microbes. So as the baby was being held and kissed, right, they would get microbes from the oral, from the breast, from skin, and as well as through vaginal birth. But if we think about how this is really playing out in our modern world today, we have all of these different influences, right? We have a lot of exposures to antibiotics, overbathing, antiseptics. We also have the use of a lot of dietary antibacterials, and just a lot of other environmental exposures. We know, kind of switching gears a little bit, if we think about all of the different social determinants of health, right? We know that our health today is more determined by influences that are kind of outside of our control than are inside. So 70% of our health is actually shaped by all of these different social determinants of health, from housing, the economy, stress levels, neighborhood safety, walkability, transportation. So if we even take something like stress, we know that stress can also influence really how our microbiome is doing over time. So the goals of our study are to really understand all of these different complex determinants of health that are shaping child development and the risk for chronic disease. And our focus really is on the role of the microbiome at different ages and stages in child development. We really want to see if there are critical windows where we really need to be careful about, what our children are exposed to protect their microbial development. And also, because we'll be collecting samples as part of this study, we want to create a comprehensive biobank that can really serve as a platform for future generations of researchers, both within Rutgers as well as outside of Rutgers. So our goal of the larger study is to enroll and follow a really diverse cohort of 5,000 pregnant women and their kids from birth to age 10. And I feel that New Jersey is the absolutely perfect place to do this because of our very unique demographic diversity. So we'll follow these kids, over 10 years. A lot of the studies that are done now, especially studies that are looking into the causal factors of autism and allergies and atopy and all of the different chronic diseases that our kids can suffer from, a lot of times they're very short studies or they're cross-sectional where they're looking at, a part of this population at one point in time. So these studies can generate a lot of correlations or associations, but we can't determine causality. So the beauty of the New Jersey Kids study is that with our sample size, we hope to be able to really figure out, what's causing a lot of these chronic diseases and if they're all linked to changes in the microbiome over time. So our goal is to really recruit participants from all over the state. New Jersey is a rather large state, and each part of the state is very different, right? And at each time point, we'll, push out online questionnaires that will assess things like medical history, social determinants of health. We'll send out sampling kits to a participant's home where they can essentially self-sample different parts of their body, so skin, oral swabs, vaginal swabs, send them back to us, and then we can analyze them. And with permission, we can also access their electronic medical records just to do a review to really paint an entire picture of what's happening over time. So as you can imagine, this is a pretty big undertaking, right? 5,000 people in a study is pretty big. So we had to do just a lot of groundwork over the past year and a half to get to the point where we are now. So we started out by going into the community. We wanted to hear the voices of the community and really center that in our research. And I like to mention that, a lot of the questions that this study is asking, we're going to be generating that from the community. We'll have a community advisory board. So when we get these samples back, they can really help determine what we should be analyzing and when. So we did a lot of focus groups in the summer of 2022. We had over 150 community members from our state express their interest in participating in a 1-hour focus group, which they did. And our target was 60. So that was like really our point of saturation. And that really helped to inform our pilot study. So our pilot study is just really going to be testing out the feasibility of our different approaches, which I'll talk about in just a moment, and also seeing how receptive the community is to remote sampling at home. With the pandemic, this is really kind of a new venture for research, is doing everything remotely. So we actually want to put this to the test and see how it scales up for something like this. And then once we have all of that groundwork laid, that will really then set the platform in motion for our main study where we would be recruiting 5,000 pregnant individuals throughout the state. So we had, before we got into our focus groups, we had over 120 members from within Rutgers University, as well as community members from outside of the university, really join different working groups to figure out, what's the mission, the purpose, and the questions, the big questions that our study should be answering. So we had more than 12 different working groups. And as you can see, these were just some of our thematic working groups. So we had groups that really focused on obstetrics, pediatrics, oral health, genetics, the importance of environmental exposures and what we should be looking for and measuring, neurodevelopment, positive health, growth, nutrition, and metabolism. We had a group that was just dedicated to social determinants of health and resilience, as well as a group that was dedicated to asthma, allergies, immunological health, and development. And then we also had more, I would say, infrastructure working groups for the study. So these were really groups that kind of were focusing on how we going to recruit participants, how are we managing all the data that's going to come in, regulatory management, what's happening to the biospecimens when they come in, as well as getting the word out about the study with marketing. So the working groups, they worked for a period of 1 year to really identify the major gaps in knowledge in their field that the KID study could address. And they also provided us with interim and final working group reports where they basically recommended key data collection protocols and time points for each of their thematic areas. And then this led us into our focus groups where we interviewed 60 participants. So all the participants we recruited on site. That was either in hospital settings. We were also on the road at, baby expos and health fairs, as well as different Nurture New Jersey events. So we had 49 participants that joined us through Zoom in a virtual focus group. And then we were also able to interview 11 participants on the spot in a private room in a hospital setting after their OB clinic appointments. So our partners for this were University Hospital, RWJ Barnabas Health in New Brunswick, Nurture New Jersey, as well as the Baby Show Expo in Edison, New Jersey. So some of the themes that really came up from our focus groups were just, concerns with time constraints, being a new parent can be completely overwhelming. And then being a part of a study like this at the same time can be really hard. We know the challenges of parenthood. Participants also talked about, just needing to see what the benefit of the study was for themselves or their baby to participate, as well as what the larger benefit to society would be. So one of the most motivating factors for participants to join the study was actually being able to help children and future parents and really prevent disease, prevent kids from having to go through allergies or asthma or suffering from obesity. They also talked about, how important it was to just have general information about the study in a very easy to read, accessible format. And then with the remote sampling, we had a general sense of positivity about doing everything at home and a lot of comfort with that. But where the discomfort was actually in sampling their babies. So taking swabs of, their baby's skin or taking an oral swab of their baby's mouth. Most of our participants actually felt a little bit more comfortable with a healthcare provider doing that or some type of mobile service coming to their home and taking samples from their baby. So, in terms of the demographics of our focus group, we had a really diverse group. So the average age was 32 years. We had 18% of our interviews were conducted in Spanish, and we had an awesome, just, diversity of racial and ethnic backgrounds for our study as well, which we were really excited about, just because historically for studies like this, they tend to be more homogenous. So we're very mindful in just making sure that we really connect with a lot of the, underrepresented and historically marginalized communities, gaining trust, building their trust in research, and most importantly, building their trust with us throughout the study. So for our pilot study, our goal, as I mentioned before, is to recruit 300 participants. And the way that we plan to do this is we've partnered with 4 different community-based organizations. So those organizations will really just distribute flyers to their participants. Each organization typically works with pregnant individuals. So it's the perfect connection, I feel, to really help get the word out and spread awareness about the study to to pregnant individuals throughout the state. We'll also be utilizing the Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Health System, their EMR system, which is statewide, to post the flyer about our study. And the MyChart system, which is their EMR, would basically filter out and send that flyer only to participants that meet our eligibility criteria. And then we'll also recruit 100 participants through social media, which is very novel. And we have a lot of just fail safes and checkpoints in place for this to prevent bots and things like that. Through 5 different social media channels. So Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, things like that, as well as WhatsApp, because we really want to be sure to reach the Hispanic community. And we know that WhatsApp is one of the most popular social media platforms for the Hispanic community. So in terms of what we would be collecting sample-wise, we would be collecting maternal biospecimens or samples at 3 different times during pregnancy, right? Ideally, we would love to have samples from the first trimester, the second trimester, as well as the third trimester. And all of this could be done completely remotely. So we would have participants swab their nose, provide us with a swab of their mouth, a simple skin swab, providing us with a stool sample, a urine sample, as well as a vaginal swab sample. There's a wonderful device that we're using called the TAP Micro device. It's a really easy way to collect blood painlessly, which is amazing because one of my big fears for myself, I hate having to get blood drawn. But this device actually draws the blood without any pain. You just kind of stick it on your arm, it takes the blood, you remove the tube, and you kind of just send it out. So that's completely optional for participants. After the baby is born, we'll have individuals send us samples at the 3 to 6 month time point postnatally, as well as 1 year postnatally. And the only addition here would just be breast milk if that individual is breastfeeding. And then for the infants, kind of we have very similar, samples that we would be collecting just to assess the microbiome at different points in time and kind of see where the changes are happening, with the blood being completely optional through the TAP Micro device. But as you can see, pretty much the same thing, nasal, oral, skin, stool, as well as urine. So we've partnered, with a lot of different agencies across our state. I feel like in New Jersey, we're so incredibly lucky because we're a very resource-rich state. We have tons of amazing nonprofit organizations. So we are absolutely thrilled to partner with our perinatal consortiums, which are the Central Jersey Family Health Consortium, the New Jersey Breastfeeding Association, the Partnership for Maternal and Child Health, as well as the South Jersey Perinatal Cooperative. And, once our participants sign up for the study, they'll be pushed, all the questionnaires and information and consents and things like that. We have a very special data platform that we've built really from the ground up just for this study, that will help participants track exactly where they are in the study. They can complete questionnaires, wherever it's comfortable for them to do it remotely. And also, it's a direct link to our study team as well. And we're always happy to meet with participants, on a Zoom session, phone calls, email, whatever works best. And each participant in the study will also receive a resource guide. So we have cultivated resources. This is a 52-page guide on everything family and child health related in New Jersey. So we'll be providing digital copies of this to each of our study participants. And we also developed a community partner toolkit. This is more of just a technical assistance toolkit for our community partners in terms of distribution of the flyer, scripts, things like that, just so we can have everything very standardized. And recently we had the awesome pleasure of working with high school students from High Tech High in Secaucus, New Jersey. We've actually worked with them to create a couple of videos for our study. So I just wanted to share an overview video that will be posted on our study website and shared with participants, just to really give them a high-level overview of what the study is all about. Oops,
I wanted to know how the things that I'm using every day, soap, body wash, makeup, affects my health and the health of my baby.
I want to know how the air quality in my house and my neighborhood are affecting me and my baby.
I want to know how the foods that we eat affect our health now and in the future.
And
I
I'm
would
just
like to
going to
know why some
reshare
children
my
develop
screen
chronic
really
diseases.
quickly. I know sometimes with the PowerPoint, it doesn't always follow the screen. So I'm just going to jump and restart this from the very beginning and keep my fingers and toes crossed that you're able to see. Okay, perfect. And hopefully everyone can see. And I'll just go back to the beginning.
I wanted to know how the things that I'm using every day, soap, body wash, makeup, affects my health and the health of my baby.
I want to know how the air quality in my house and my neighborhood are affecting me and my baby.
I want to know how the foods that we eat affect our health now and in the future.
I would like to know why some children develop chronic diseases like allergies, asthma, and autism, and others don't.
I want to know if the stress in my life is having an impact on my baby's development.
The Rutgers New Jersey Kids Study is a new research initiative to answer your questions about how our environment influences child health and development. It is designed to figure out why some children develop allergies, asthma, celiac disease, diabetes, and obesity, and others don't.
Getting involved and staying involved in the Rutgers New Jersey Kids Study is a super easy. Since everything for the study can be done in the comfort of your own home, you will never need to travel or schedule in-person visits. At times convenient for you, you will complete a few online questionnaires over the course of 18 months.
You'll also be asked to send in a few samples like saliva and skin swabs throughout the study.
This will help us answer important research questions, like how the quality of air our children breathe, the amount of sleep, and the physical activity they get, the life events they experience, and what they eat shapes the growth and development throughout childhood and beyond.
We care about the health and well-being of you and your child. Our core values of compassion, respect, and transparency guide everything that we do in the study. We imagine a world where every child is given the healthiest start in life. The vision of the Rutgers New Jersey Kids Study is to have what we learn impact healthcare practices and policy right here in New Jersey. Learn more about how you can join and be paid for taking part in the study by scanning the QR code or visiting our website. Working together to create a healthy future for every child.
And with that, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining our Zoom session today. And I'm always happy to answer any questions that you may have about the study.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to Cecilia and to Michelle for today's presentation and for the case study. So we will now transition into the question and answer forum. If anyone would like, you feel free to unmute yourself, raise a hand if you'd like to ask a question, but we do have a few questions here that we received from the chat as well. For Cecilia, we did have somebody in the chat from Tanya. She says she's curious to understand more about the appropriate foods that we eat. There seems to be conflicting health information. She learned recently that leaky gut is caused by lectins and endotoxins, and foods that are encouraged to eat are high in lectins like whole grains, legumes, potatoes, and nightshade, tomatoes, bell peppers, and so on. So it suggests substituting these foods. Can you speak to this or have any information regarding this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there's a common theme in nutrition where there is a lot of conflicting information, unfortunately. And I know lectins have been a pretty popular topic lately, but lectins are usually removed when you cook your food. So beans, lentils, legumes, potatoes, as long as you are washing them, cooking them with beans, you can soak them for a few hours. That will remove the lectins or make them inactive so that they can't do any damage. Endotoxins are usually there, they are foodborne illnesses, so salmonella, botulism. So as long as you are following food safety practices, cooking your chicken thoroughly, refrigerating your food promptly, you should be able to reduce the risk of these endotoxins as well. I hope that answered your question.
Perfect, thank you. And then there was another one that we had. Are fiber supplements a good option?
So fiber supplements are generally safe, but they're not a substitute for getting fiber from whole foods. They have not been proven to be as effective as eating beans and eating berries and lentils. So I think it's a good backup option for, when you're going out to eat and you're not sure if there's going to be any fibrous foods there, but it shouldn't be your only option. And always speak to your doctor before taking any new supplements.
Wonderful. And then is there any way that, someone can protect their gut health when they're taking antibiotics?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is not to start any new protocols while you're taking the antibiotic. So if you're not currently taking a probiotic and you're not currently eating a high fiber meal, a high fiber diet, you don't want to start it when you're on antibiotics. The most important thing is to let the antibiotic work so that you feel better. You can do easy things like eating prebiotic foods such as bananas and oatmeal, but don't do anything drastic. Don't suddenly start to jump to eating 30 grams of fiber in a day. Once you're done with antibiotics and you feel better, then you can start incorporating more fermented foods, more fiber, and generally just implementing a lot of the things that we talked about today. So prebiotics, fermented foods, fiber, and resistant starches.
Wonderful. I guess circling back, it looks like Corey is asking, is flaxseed meal a good fiber source?
Absolutely. Flaxseed meal is a wonderful fiber source. It's very high fiber. And when you grind it, when it's ground, as it is in meal, it's a little bit easier to digest since it is so high fiber. So it is a good option to have it ground.
And then it looks like we also have another question from Donna. What are your thoughts on gluten?
It's an excellent question. So I think it's very nuanced because there are people who do have celiac disease and cannot consume gluten. And there are people who maybe they just have some discomfort, some bloating, some cramping. And I think it's a good idea for those people to talk to a dietitian first and foremost and see what happens, what she suggests. I think also that most people should be able to consume some amount of gluten. I think most people should be able to consume really any sort of food, even dairy, without experiencing a lot of discomfort. And if you are experiencing discomfort, that can be a sign that there's something else going on, and to talk to a dietitian or a doctor, and hopefully they can figure something out. You maybe put on an elimination diet for a small amount of time to figure out your triggers. And then once you have your triggers, it's really about restoring balance in your digestive system, in your gut microbiome, so that hopefully you can reintroduce those foods at some point. But I don't think that if you're not experiencing any issues with gluten, that you need to remove it completely.
Thank you. It's very interesting. Does anybody else have any other questions that you'd like to drop in the chat, whether it's for Cecilia or for Michelle? I probably am talking too much, and I actually have a question for Michelle as well. So I wanted to give the floor to anybody else beforehand, so I'll just give it a few seconds.
I did have another thought about the antibiotic question, sorry.
Oh, perfect.
So if you are taking antibiotics and you are currently taking a probiotic, it's important to separate the two by at least 2 hours or even more so that they don't interact with each other.
Great. It's really interesting. Michelle, I actually had a question for you as well. So
Sure.
during your presentation, you talked about a fear, I guess, kind of needles or having to draw blood. And I was actually very curious about, is that like a new apparatus that they're using to retrieve blood? You just stick it on your arm? How does that work?
Yeah, it literally, you put it on your arm and you push a button and you don't feel anything. And it actually withdraws the blood very, very quickly. It's amazing. So the device has been in use for a few years. It's manufactured by a company called Your Bio Health. I can actually put the link in the chat box for anyone that's interested. And it's been used with really great success, especially for those that do have a fear of needles like myself, especially for like blood work and things like that. NYU also used it. They were doing several studies and it worked out really, really well. And it also, for individuals that are undergoing fertility treatment, because unfortunately there's a lot of needles involved in that as well. It's also been used to do like blood work as well in those types of settings. So yeah, it's been great. It's been thoroughly tested. It's FDA approved. So we've partnered with Your Bio Health to use it for the study, and we're just curious to see what the uptake will be. But we tested it out as a team before to see. And we were all really shocked. We're like, this is kind of cool. And like, like I said, completely needle phobic. So I will definitely give it my 5-star rating.
No, that's awesome. That's really interesting. I'm kind of hoping that maybe that's something that'll be pretty standard when you go for regular blood work now, better than them having to stick and prod you with all the needles. But thank you so much. Are there any other questions for Cecilia or Michelle? I'll give it a few seconds. If not, I'll just transition to the end of our presentation since we are running a little bit short on time. Oh, it looks like Corey said, my husband has a fear of needles and he's diabetic. So that would probably be very useful. All right, just give me 1 second to pull up the end of our presentation and then I will let everybody go shortly. All right, can everybody see my slides? Thank you. Just make sure. All right, and so at the Rutgers Cancer Institute, we are committed to meeting the cancer-related needs of communities across the state. And so we actually have a patient navigation team that's here to help guide you throughout the cancer continuum by assisting with healthcare access and coordination, focusing on patient-centered care and communication, and coordinating appropriate and timely screenings. They are wonderful, and this is actually their brochure that we do give out when we're doing resource tabling. So please feel free to contact them, whether that's by phone or by email. They're very receptive and they are able to help you throughout your journey. And then we also have our NJC program within our state. A lot of you may already be familiar with this, but it actually stands for the New Jersey Cancer Education and Early Detection Program. And it's a program run by the New Jersey Department of Health in collaboration with local agencies and healthcare systems. And the NJC program provides education and outreach within the community about all different types of cancers. And they provide free screenings to those that are unemployed, underinsured, uninsured, or face barriers to getting the cancer screenings that they need. And the NJC program currently provides screening for breast, prostate, cervical, and colorectal cancers. And it's actually offered in all 21 counties throughout our state. So if you'd like more information, their phone number is listed below, and you can actually search facilities just on their website to see what's closest to your area. And with that, that actually brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you to everyone for attending, especially thank you to Cecilia and Michelle for wonderful presentations and a wonderful case study. We have been getting so many requests about getting the slides and getting the type of information. This is great information and people seem to be very receptive to it. We would be very appreciative too if you guys were to fill out these evaluation forms. They are also dropped in the chat as well. We would love your feedback. Please let us know of any topics you'd like to see in the future, or any other questions you may have for the presenters. And then to access the materials and resources from today's presentation, we are using a new platform called Mighty Networks. So you can register with the link in the chat as well, or you can Google it. And just give us about 2 weeks for resource finalization. So we'll have recordings, a PDF version of the slides, and any other resources that we find or that might be helpful to you all. And then this last slide here, our PF is now open. The deadline is Friday, April 19th, 2024. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out and we can put you in contact with somebody who can help walk you through that process. And coming up, we would love to see you in May, and we're doing a presentation on cancer health literacy. It will be the same link that we use for today, but if you need it, please feel free to register, and we really hope to see you all there. And as well, we wanted to announce that the presentation that Cecilia presented today for Microbiome is now a new educational workshop that we can offer. So if anybody's familiar with the COE flyers, it gives you a list of the informational workshops that we can do, and Microbiome will now be included in that. And if anybody wants any more information or has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And we hope to see you next month. I hope everybody enjoys the weather. Thank you to all our presenters. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. Thank you.